God had made a mistake, killing a boy who was not supposed to die right now. A lightning bolt struck a young man named Toya, who now sat before God. God is sorry, but there is nothing he cannot fix immediately. God makes him a proposition. He will transport Toya to another dimension. This world is filled with magical users and magical creatures, and God wants to make amends for the mistake he made by killing him by accident. God grants him strength and magic proficiency so that he will not perish so easily in the next world. Toya had no idea how powerful his God-given strength and proficiency were. Toya is enthralled and agrees to reincarnate in that world. He does have a minor request. He is a teenager and he will not give up his cell phone. How else could he send out edgy tweets? God readily concurs. He even unlocks the phone and adds locations from the new world to his Maps app. Traditional God, instead of addressing his own shortcomings, he goes around creating superhumans. Toya blacks out and awakens in a peaceful new world, where the buildings are frightening and the trees are plentiful. This is the ideal world. As soon as he gets out of bed, he receives a call from God. He had called to see if the phone was working and to wish him a pleasant stay. God even took the time to address his contact as God. Damn, Toya doesn't take long to reach a nearby village, and on the way, a local fashion designer notices his cool costume. He'd never seen anything like it before. Clearly, the Kardashians did not exist in this world. He offers Toya clothes and money in exchange for handing over his clothes to the guy. Toya is taken to the fashion designer's shop in Reflect. Despite understanding everyone, Toya does not appear to be able to read any of the dialects. He leaves the shop with his money and a new set of clothes. Toya wanders around town looking for an inn to stay in after bidding farewell to the designer shop. He becomes aware of two goons threatening some girls. They are holding an ice horn that they purchased from the girls but refuse to pay the correct price for. There is 1 gold coin. Toya then interrupts the goons by purchasing the horn, snatching it from the goons, and shattering it right in front of them. He had hoped that this would distract the goons, but instead they rush to beat him up. Toya, on the other hand, easily defeats the goons thanks to God's enhancements. It's almost as if they hit him slowly. After the entire incident has died down, El Sihaweska and Lynn Silhauseka introduce themselves as twin sisters. Toya introduces himself with his full name, and the girls assume he is from another country called Ishan and agree to assist him because he is a foreigner. Toya pays them for the horn, and the sisters are grateful. They also direct him to the nearby inn where they are staying. The next day, the girls take Toya to a nearby guild where adventurers can take on missions and be paid in exchange. Toya has no idea what he's looking at as they search for missions on the board because he can't read at all. They decide to form a group and go on a mission as a group. Toya asks the girls for one more favor after the first mission is completed. He requests that they teach him magic as well as how to read and write. Lynn's sister volunteers her to assist Toya because she is skilled in magic. Lynn informs him that certain abilities are required to use certain types of magic. To begin with, there were 6 types of elemental magic: water, fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness, as well as a special type of magic known as null magic. To use each type of magic, a person must have inherent abilities. Toya is unsure if he possesses any pre-programmed abilities, but he believes in God, who told him that he could use any magic he desired. Linz goes on to say that there are 7 magical stones that can be used to test aptitudes, which they do. Toya, with God's blessing, turns out to be an absolute champ, capable of using all 6 elements as well as null magic. The girls are taken aback because they have never seen or heard of anyone who can use all 6 elements. Furthermore, Toya's null magic gate ability is extremely powerful. They can travel from one location to another in a matter of seconds using this. Toya feels bad because God bestowed this ability on him without any training. It's almost as if he was cheating in a game. After a few days, Toya has mastered the majority of the elements and their spells, and the party accepts more advanced missions, which earns them more money. One of these missions is to deliver a letter to the royal capital. As the group makes their way to the capital, they notice a strangely dressed woman being bullied by a group of men. She appears to be hungry, and despite being able to easily defeat the group, her hunger overcomes her and she slips. Toya and his group, on the other hand, arrive just in time to assist her. They flee to a remote location before the soldiers arrive. The girl introduces herself as Kakano Yi and states that she is from the country Ishan, which explains her unusual attire. Yi informs them that she had lost all of her travel expenses on her way here and that she was hungry and lost. The group decides to assist her by providing her with a treat at a nearby inn. Yi finally tells them after 5 people's worth of food that she left home to pursue her swordsmanship because she comes from a family of samurais. She was on her way to the capital to hone her skills and challenge some people along the way. The twin sisters tell her that they are also going to the capital, so they all decide to go together. Linz hands Toya a book containing all null magic spells as they travel to the capital. Normally, null magic is personal, and one person can only perform one type of spell at a time, but Toya decides to take on the challenge. He understands all of the spells, including making someone slip, transferring small objects from one location to another and even heightening his senses. As Toya casts the spell to sharpen his senses, he notices that he can smell blood from somewhere nearby, and the group rushes to that location. A swarm of lizardmen had managed to overpower a small group of soldiers who were escorting someone through the area. A mage nearby is casting spells and summoning more lizardmen to fight. Toya and his group arrive quickly and attack the lizardmen one by one, even subduing the mage who was casting the summoning spell. Someone was badly injured with an arrow stuck to his chest, and Toya uses the transfer magic to remove the arrow piece from the chest before using the heal magic to completely heal the man. Toya is the best. Sushi Ortland, the girl in the carriage, turns out to be the daughter of a local duke, and the man injured was her steward, Lime. They were on their way to the capital when they were ambushed by the mage. After losing many men, Liam requests that the party guard them until they reach the capital, where they will be handsomely rewarded. Toya and the rest of the group agree and accompany Sushi and her men back to her house. The Duke, Alfred Ortland, is relieved that his daughter is safe and sound, and he expresses his heartfelt gratitude to the group. He even invites them to join him for lunch. While having tea with Toya, the Duke reveals that he had sent his daughter to his grandfather to learn a special null magic spell. His wife had been sick and blind for several years, and if Sushi had learned that spell, she could have saved her mother. But null magic is personal magic, and not everyone can perform the same spell. So Sushi's journey had been in vain. It was almost as if Toya had been sent there by fate, and he offers to try his hand at the spell. He works his magic on the Duchess by placing his hand over her eyes. The Duchess opens her eyes for the first time in many years and sees her husband and daughter. The family reunites once more, this time in perfect health. The Duke is so pleased with the day's events that he presents the group with two incredible gifts. The first was 40 platinum counts, which Toya calculated to be nearly 40 million yen, and 4 badges that will grant them access to checkpoints and all nobility facilities. Everyone is satisfied, so the group finally departs to deliver their letter. E, who had planned to stay in the capital, decides that it would be best for her skills to follow the all-powerful Toya around, and thus the Toya's party has gained one more permanent member. The group returns to Reflet after doing some shopping in the capital. After some time has passed, Toya has managed to introduce some items from our world to the magical world with the help of his smartphone. He introduced the world to desserts like ice cream and cream rolls, as well as games like shogi, a type of Japanese chess. Because of Toya's gate ability, they frequently visit the Duke and his daughter and spend time together eating cream rolls and playing shogi. The group decides to accept a mission from the guild in the capital and search the ancient capital grounds one day. The royal capital had moved there about 1,000 years ago, and it was now haunted by headless knights. They are able to dispatch the knights quickly thanks to Lin's and Toya's magic and Yi and L's brute force. Toya then uses his new null spell search to scout the area for any treasure and discovers one nearby underground. They find themselves heading down a dark dungeon in search of the treasure when they come across a massive door blocking their path. Toya takes a few pictures of the inscriptions on the door to study later because it has many in an ancient language. He then activates the door lock, revealing a strange spherical object. As soon as the gate is fully opened, the object begins to transform into a strange monster with a red glowing core. The entire dungeon begins to crumble, and the group rushes out using Toya's gate spell. The monster, on the other hand, follows them, and the party quickly coordinates their attacks and dispatches it, but for some reason it regenerates its body. Toya realizes that the core is the most important thing to destroy, so with the help of Lin's and Yi, he separates it from the monster's body and throws it to Els, who smashes it. The monster then reverts to its previous state of death and crumbles to the ground. The party then goes to the Duke to report this unusual occurrence, and Toya tells him that he will send him the ruins pictures after writing them down. The Duke is unaware of the monster, but he promises that his mages will investigate. When Toya returns the next day with the promised pictures, he is greeted by the Duke at his gates. He informs him that his brother, the king, has been poisoned and requests his assistance. Toya agrees to accompany him. The Duke explains on the way that their nation was about to form an alliance with the neighboring beastman nation of Mismida. The perpetrator is most likely one of the alliance's lords. The problem is that the king's only heir is a daughter, Princess Yumina, and if the king dies, the nobles will marry her off to someone they can control in order to run the country to ruin. The Duke requests that Toya use his recovery spell to remove the poison from the king's body before he dies. Their carriage speeds up to the king's gates, where they are greeted by Count Balka, a nobleman. Something about his expression makes you think he's the bad guy. He informs them that the ambassador who arrived from the Mismida kingdom was the one who poisoned the king and had already been apprehended. Toya and the Duke completely disregard him and rush to the king. The king's men are gathered around him, watching in awe as Toya uses recovery, a long-lost magic, to save the king. Toya then goes to the dining room where the king drank the poison. He employs his magic to search the room for poison. When he has solved the mystery, he summons everyone present at the meeting. There are the king, queen, duke, princess, soldiers, and even the count. Toya pours a drink into one of the glasses and hands it to Leon, the commander, to see if it's poisoned. The commander drinks it and confirms that it is not poisonous. Toya then pours the same drink into the king's glass and hands it to Count Balka, who hesitates and begins crying and wailing about how he will die after taking a sip. It turns out that Balka and his men poisoned all of the king's glasses. Toya had poisoned one of them to confirm his suspicions. Count Balka is apprehended right away. Toya is thanked by the king for his assistance with everything. Yumine, in particular, falls in love with Toya and declares her intention to marry him. The king and queen don't even appear to be arguing. The princess had a special ability in her eyes that allowed her to see a person's true nature and intent. Wouldn't that have been useful in identifying the true perpetrator? Regardless, despite Toya's protests, the king and queen are determined to give their daughter to him. She had to be a real pain in the arse. Toya does not agree to marry her, but he does allow her to join their party. Yumine is granted permission to become an adventurer like Toya by the king and queen. When they return to reflect, Yumine proudly introduces herself as Toya's wife to the rest of the group, who appear to be a little disappointed. Yumine was a princess, and the others were skeptical that she could fight, but she quickly proves her worth by demonstrating her summoning abilities. She even shows Toya how to do it, and Toya summons an animal. Toya's magical abilities are so advanced that he is able to summon the highest beast that can be summoned, the White Emperor, and seal a connection with it. He even names it Kohaku, who transforms into a cute little cat and follows his master around in public. Their next mission does not make the girls particularly happy. They'd been assigned to look into a slime mansion. Slimes, particularly green ones, were notorious for melting clothes on contact, so the girls were less than thrilled about the mission. Toya, on the other hand, was secretly delighted. Upon entering, they discover a variety of slimes that appear to have been created by someone for research purposes. Linz discovers a notebook containing descriptions of each of the slimes. They come across the infamous green slimes on their way up. They try to flee, but they get caught in the lotion slime's lotion and fall right into the green slimes. Kohaku saves Toya, but the rest of the girls land on them and their dresses begin to dissolve. Toya quickly saves them, but their clothing is still a little too revealing. They quickly put on shabby clothes and begin their investigation. The girls had already planned to demolish the structure. Yumine even considered forcing her father to agree, but Toya persuades them to wait until they get to the end, and the girls agree, but the end is pretty bad. The research being conducted in the castle was of the most heinous nature. The researcher was attempting to create slime that could mimic the female body. The women in the group witnessed this heinous slime in real life right in front of their eyes. The castle, like men's ambitions, is set ablaze. The group was resting in their inn that night after such a traumatic experience when they received a letter. It was the king who requested Toya's presence in order to elevate him to nobility. Toya wanted to refuse it right away, but in order to refuse, he had to attend a formal meeting, so he is forced to go regardless. After Toya declines the offer to become a nobility, the king and queen instead offer him a large mansion. Kohaku believes that this was the royals' intention all along, as they would not want their daughter to stay in an inn. Toya and the group go to the new mansion, which is as grand as the Duke's palace. Toya claims that they will all be living here. The girls appeared flustered and blushing with embarrassment. They all seemed to like Toya but couldn't express it because he was bound to Yumine. But this meant he was kind of professing them to be his wives. Toya, obviously, had no idea and continues to claim that he loves them all equally. Yumine goes to confront the girls after they flee in shame. She has no qualms about sharing Toya with them. This is getting strange. The king dispatches some workers to assist with the construction of the house. They are led by Lime's brother, Lame, the steward, who is accompanied by Lapis, another woman named Cecile, and 2 men for security. Later, the Duke pays another visit to Toya at his home. He still jokes about giving his daughter to Toya, but Toya dismisses it. He has no idea how serious the man is. The Duke, on the other hand, was not present for this reason. He informs Toya that if the kingdoms were to form an alliance, the kings would have to meet soon. This necessitated travel, which introduced new risks, so he requests that Toya accompany him to Mismeda. Once he was there, he could use his gate spell to help the kings meet whenever they wanted. Toya accepts the mission and travels to Mismeda with his friends, the royal emissaries, and the ambassador, Olga. Toya notices that they are being followed after crossing the border into Mismeda, but they decide not to investigate further. They make their way to the capital, intending to pass through Eld village. They are on their way when they notice a black dragon heading straight for the village. Their carriages are too slow, and by the time they arrive at the village, the dragon has already destroyed the majority of it. Toya and his companions entice the dragon and engage it in battle. Lin slashes one of its wings, and E slashes one of its eyes. Teepaya's weapon breaks because its skin is too hard, but the dragon is attacked by someone from the shadows before it can regain its strength. Lens then creates a massive ice block, which Toya models into a lens, and uses his light magic to pierce through the dragon's skin, killing it. Soon after, another dragon appears, claiming to be their king. He apologizes to Toya for his fellow dragon's arrogance and departs. The following day, the group arrives in Mismide's capital and the royal palace, which is an exact replica of India's Taj Mahal. Their king, who is half human and half tiger, greets Toya and the others. He informs them that he will make an alliance decision soon and invites them to stay in his castle until then. What a gentleman he is. After that, he challenges Toya to a single combat. What a beast. The two must spar until one of them wins, but no attack magic may be used. The king is defeated at first by a simple slip magic that causes him to fumble, but the second time around he puts up a good fight against Toya. The king's null magic acceleration makes him very quick, giving him the advantage, but Toya quickly learns how to copy this magic and beats the king at his own game. Toya is unable to sleep that night in the Mismide palace, so he wanders the palace corridors and comes across a strange-looking teddy bear walking around the corridors as well. Toya is motioned to follow the teddy bear, who leads him to an empty room. Toya meets a fairy queen, Lean, who shows him her power in order to impress the dragon slayer. The teddy bear from earlier was inanimate, but she used her magic to make it appear to be alive. She also displays it on a chair. Toya is taken aback and quickly performs the action himself, wondering what else he could do with this. This ability was similar to modern-day coding. The fairy queen invites him to be her apprentice, but Toya flees before she can offer him anything else or, worse, enchant him. The next day, Toya goes into a nearby forest with his friends Lens and Yumine, taking the dragon's teeth he had received from the villagers and asking Lens to cut it into 4 pieces. Then, using his modeling spell, he fashions a gun out of dragon's teeth fragments. He programs the gun to be able to switch between gun and sword modes using the programmed spell he learned the day before. Toya is so generous that he gives each of his friends a gun. Their journey in Mismide has come to an end. After so many adventures, Toya decides he is too mentally and physically exhausted to continue, so they agree to take a few days off. The rest of the days are spent in a relaxed, playful manner. He does, however, have a visitor one evening. It's the fairy queen Lean, who has come to inform him about the regenerating monster they fought ages ago. She and her party had apparently fought a similar creature just a few days before. She informs him that these creatures are known as phrases, and that they were once thought to have nearly destroyed the world. She informs him that in order to further investigate this matter, they must travel to Ishin and examine the ruins there. She wishes to depart immediately and arrive as soon as possible. However, because Toya has never been to Ishin, he has no idea how to use a gate to get there. Lean tells him about the recall spell, which can be used to study someone's memory, and then use that memory to create a gate. Toya uses the recall on Yi to determine the location of her village Ida, and they all travel there. Yi's village is strikingly similar to Japan, where Toya had arrived, and he can't help but notice the similarities. Yi, on the other hand, notices that something is wrong with the villagers. When the group arrives at Yi's house, her mother informs them that the neighboring Take-Two clan has declared war on their village, and her father and brother have been fighting them for quite some time. Only one final fort stood between the village and Take-Two's army. The group rushes to aid the army, only to discover that they are vastly outnumbered by the Take-Two forces. The soldiers who had survived claimed that the Take-Two soldiers did not die even when they were killed, but stopped moving when their masks were broken. Toya uses his smartphone to track down the entire army of Take-Two that had surrounded them and then destroys all of their masks at once. The Lord, on the other hand, believes that this will not be over until the perpetrator is killed or apprehended. They had heard rumors that the actual lord of the Take-Two clan had died and that someone else named Kansuke was using the army. They couldn't find the man and thus couldn't stop the immortal army. Suddenly, a spy from the Take-Two clan, Tsubaki, shows up with a letter that confirms their suspicions. Take-Two's generals were all imprisoned while Kansuke used the army against them. She knew where the man was and could direct them there. Toya and Lean make the decision to go there. They use the recall spell to locate the area and then the gate spell to get there, but the gate spell teleports them outside the stronghold for some reason. Lean realizes they must go there alone because there is a barrier preventing them from using the gate. She casts an invisibility spell on herself, Toya, and Tsubaki, and the three rush to save Take-Two clan's General Baba and the other 2 generals. Toya tries using the gate again, hoping that now that they're inside, the barrier won't work, but it still does, so they destroy the charm that was holding the barrier together. Finally, the gate opens, and they are whisked away to Kansuke. The man is clever enough to use the dead lord's body as a bodyguard. Because none of the generals can take up arms against their lord, Toya simply shoots him. He was already dead, so the generals don't mind. Kansuke then commits the classic villain error of flashing his immortality jewel stuck in his eye. He boasts about how he can never lose as long as he has that, and Toya uses transfer magic to steal the jewel from the man. They all agree that destroying the eye is the best option. The man is then apprehended, and Ida's peace is restored. Toya inquires about the ruins with General Baba, who informs him that he once visited the site but that it is now underwater due to global warming or something. Toya is forced to use the recall spell on Baba, which was quite awkward, and then uses the gate to travel to the desired location. Because the location is a beautiful beach, the entire gang decides to relax for a while and enjoy the beach and sea. Toya even uses the gate spell to bring the Duke, King, and all his house workers to the beach so they can enjoy it as well. Toya and Lean attempted to reach the sunken ruins while the others played volleyball and swam. Toya dove into the sea, but the ruins were too deep and he didn't have enough air to go that deep. Kohaku suggests that he enlist the assistance of a friend. Normally, a summoning spell cannot summon a specific person, but Toya is able to summon the Sea Kings. Gen, a turtle and a massive snake. They challenge Toya to a battle if he wants to be their master. If he can fight them until sunset, he will be their master. Toya doesn't have time for such shenanigans, so he casts a slip spell beneath them and then programs the ground to cast a slip spell indefinitely until he tells it to stop. It doesn't take long for him to win, and the two sign contracts with him. They also contract in order to avoid being noticed by everyone. To be honest, they're quite adorable. Toya gives the turtle the name Sango and the snake the name Kokuyo. Toya was able to manipulate water now that he had control of the Sea Kings. He could walk directly on the water's surface and even breathe with ease. He walks to the ruins and discovers a magical seal. By releasing magic on the seal, Toya is transported away. Toya awakens in a strange-looking garden with a strange-looking woman standing before him, who wore nothing below her waist. She introduces herself as Francesca, the guardian of this location. Toya doesn't care, all he wants is for her to put on some pants. The girl insists on him looking at or touching her, but Toya refuses and asks her to be polite. The girl finally agrees and puts on a skirt, formally introducing the location as the Garden of Babylon, which her creator, Regina Babylon, created 92 years ago. The girl is actually a humanoid robot who is kept to look after the garden. She informs him that the professor was a person who could use all 6 elements and had designed the seal for someone who could use all 6 elements like her. She had intended to give Francesca and the garden to that person, but she was now Toya's property. Toya is overwhelmed by the situation. He didn't even want to come here. Lean came up with the idea. He summons everyone to the garden using the gate spell. When they are all gathered, Francesca informs them that her creator created many such floating Babylon islands all over the world, each with its own guardian. She then declares Toya to be her master and husband, kissing him before everyone takes his DNA, and registers him as the island's lord. The other girls are envious. They can't stand it when their lover is kissed by someone else. So Linz takes a brave step and professes her love to Toya and kisses him as well. Toya is clearly shaken by the incident, and he retreats to his room. Yumine requests permission to enter and expresses her outrage that 2 women kissed him before her. She was, after all, the one who was supposed to be married to her. She requests that he kiss her in order to calm down, and Toya obliges. The girl was 12 years old. Someone, please call the cops. Linz had heard everything while hiding in the room with Lean's invisibility spell. She tells Toya that she wants to be his wife and doesn't mind if he has more than one wife as long as she is one of them. Toya is forced to accept, and the 2 girls depart happily. Outside, his problems worsen as Yi and Els both confess their love for him and desire to be his wives. This man is suffering from success, but he can't decide whether it's real or not, so he goes to the Garden of Babylon to clear his mind and make a decision. Francesca hands him a USB-C charger port, and as soon as he connects it to his phone, he receives a call from Regina Babylon from 5,000 years ago. She possessed a special item that allowed her to see into the future. Regina warns him that the phrase monster will soon arrive and destroy their world. But because she can still see him, the world must have survived somehow, implying that Toya was involved in the phrase removal. Toya is more concerned about his future and the situation of his wives, but she tells him that it wouldn't be fun if she gave him the answers and hangs up the phone. Toya then goes to the only place where he can get answers. He employs the gate spell to travel to none other than God. That shouldn't be possible, but I'm not going to argue with logic. God carefully listens to his situation and then summons an expert, the goddess of love. She tells him that he is thinking in his old world. Of course he can have 4 wives. Heck, he could even have an Apache helicopter as a wife if he wanted to. Toya returns determined after hearing the goddess and responds to the 4 waiting women. He couldn't marry them right now, but if they were all okay with it, he would eventually marry all 4 of them. The girls agree and declare themselves Toya's fiancés without further discussion. Outside, Lean and Francesca watch them argue, and Francesca mentions that Regina predicted the future Toya would have at least 9 wives. Damn, my man will be living the dream. Alternatively, nightmare. This was it for today. Subscribe to my channel to watch more recaps.